Hello and welcome to the aForm show. My name is Alan George and thank you very much for tuning in. Each week, we sit across from thought leaders and change makers in the architecture and design space of the GCC. We dive deep into their experiences, both professionally and personally, and share their valuable insight as to what makes them tick. Our goal is to add value to your day and help you navigate your own personal creative journey. Finally, the opinions and the views of the guest speakers are that of their own. They do not necessarily represent the views and the opinions of the show or the host. Welcome to the show, everyone. This week, we are joined by Fadi Sarieddine, an architect who has a true passion for design across various fields, scope, and materials. Fadi Sarieddine Design Studio is a truly unique, multidisciplinary studio. The design team has delivered multiple spaces which push the design envelope and have designed a truly unique set of furniture, something which we're truly excited to get into. A good showcase of their talents would be the recently completed co-living project known as HIVE Coliv in JVC. So without further ado, let's get into it. Good morning, Fadi. How are you?
Good morning. All good. How are you?
Very well, very well. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. Ever since we've had Bas and Alistair on, we've been following your work with Hive and your contributions with Design Week and just your furniture design in general, I think makes quite a statement. So we've been big fans. So I've been looking forward personally for this for quite a while. So thank you so much for making this happen. Kind of first off the bat, clearly, I would kind of classify you as a true designer in the sense that I don't see you being boxed into I'm either an architect or an interior designer or a furniture designer or anything for that matter, which I find quite interesting. Minds that can kind of think across all disciplines with the same intent, pretty much. So I'm curious to hear from you. What is your design workflow like? Once you get a brief of any kind, how do you kind of start and what's your process?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Yes, we do. I agree with you. Our approach, being an architect also, because without offending other design disciplines, it's a very thorough kind of design approach. It's very systematic. So when we get a new design, which comes with its brief, and it's basically design is problem solving, but the solution has a visual kind of presence when we come up with the solution. So it's basically problem solving. We start kind of thinking about it. In terms of workflow, I can, if I want to answer it in two aspects, the way I work and the way I also... So we work from on a process kind of approach towards any design. So what we start with, gathering all the information. Sometimes, in case of Hive, for example, it involved us traveling with the client to London to actually look at all precedents in terms of co-living. I also personally went to Holland and looked at a few examples. But this is a big project. But in terms of scale, we start with kind of gathering information and then doing some kind of research about the problem itself. I start kind of extracting facts from the client in the form of interrogation because I want to extract all the information from them to be able to interpret what they really are after. We start researching, and I avoid looking at, people call it mood images. I don't like that. I don't like this approach. I don't want to see what has been done. I just want to focus on the problem itself and what are the intrinsic factors in it and start to get inspiration from there. So there's a lot of thinking. A new project just automatically occupies my mind, and it's all I think about, whether I'm driving, whether I'm eating. It's always something brewing.
Right.
I'm trying to find and when it clicks, I start sketching first, and then in parallel, I'm also kind of building the story. The information I extracted from the client, I start to put it in a story form, like a storyboard in a way. And then we engage the client more in the process. I show them initial sketches, we bounce ideas, and then disappear again, and then keep developing it.
Right, right. That sounds quite interesting because with what we do at practice as well is somewhat similar in the sense of gathering information. But what I've found as a trend of late is that the more sort of questions you ask, specifically in our field, because we do a lot of residential work. So our kind of questionnaire becomes quite personal at times, maybe overly personal even at times. And there's always a bit of friction that happens because, clients think, why do you need to know this? And things of that nature. So I'm curious on your end, do you also see a sort of similar feedback at times?
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to, we do also part of our information gathering, we have a questionnaire.
Right.
and we let them fill it. The questionnaire differs if it's an office or a restaurant or a residential. Residential, the questions become very personal.
Right.
Like I want to know the client because I'm actually affecting his way of life.
Right.
The space I design is going to govern his way of life. So I want to know his way of life. So I ask him like, or her, where do you eat? Like, do you eat actually on the table? If we do it, let's say we do a nice dining table. Do you actually eat on the table or you actually always eat on the TV? And do you entertain people or like you don't, like these things I need to know. If I'm doing a house. If other types of projects, it's less personal, but we need to know these things because we don't want the end user to clash with his space. Like they have to like really like has to have a smooth interaction.
Right.
And we can only get that by knowing how they actually conduct their life.
True. Very valid point. I kind of then want to ask about furniture design because I find that very interesting of late. I constantly find myself finding problems with existing furniture around me. I'm like, oh, that table could have been, slightly better and the legs could have been slightly, the detail could have been slightly different or this chair could have been slightly higher and just small kind of quirks that I'm now starting to see in furniture design. I'm curious then for you, because obviously you've not only designed, but actually built and have a very good collection, I must also say. How do you go about kind of, well, not reinventing the wheel per se, but kind of rethinking about what furniture design should be?
Yeah, I like this question. Actually, I started doing furniture design because I couldn't find anything that kind of answers my needs.
Right.
Especially here. So I started designing my own furniture and then it grew into like being part of my business. When we design like any piece of furniture, of course, we take the brief. But when we start designing, there's no rules. Like I kind of have the ability to erase all preconceived ideas. So I kind of really start by questioning, like if it's a table, the basic rules of gravity, or does it have to have legs? Like I'm just saying hypothetically, but
right.
Like when you question these things, it's a good path to innovation.
Right.
So yeah, that's why we come up sometimes with elements in the pieces that we design that are kind of alien in a way, but original.
Right. I mean, that's completely true for anyone who's seen your work. It's exactly that. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what a table is, but I never really thought a table could be like that, which is interesting. Obviously, for a lot of the listeners, I'm pretty sure who are passionate designers, maybe also want to design and build and execute a piece of furniture of their own, myself included. I think a lot of designers maybe don't really know how to go about something like that. So I think my question to you is, if any of our listeners wanted to go to a wood shop and design a chair, for example, in a place like Dubai, how does one go about that? Are there places they can go? Are there workshops they can do? What is it? How can they kind of go about learning this craft?
Yeah, this is very challenging. This is the main reason why I actually established my own factory recently.
Right.
And when I started also, you have to find small kind of boutique factories that are willing to accommodate you. Like the big factories, they don't have time for you. Like
right.
they're a machine and they just want to do big projects, mass production.
Right.
So you have to find somebody who is willing to accommodate you and let you prototype. Of course, you'll have to pay for it, but it needs time. And like sometimes you see things in the market that are not mature enough because they didn't have that luxury of that process of prototyping. I've seen a lot of things being exhibited which are literally an early prototype, like an immature prototype, you can tell. And that's because of the lack of the presence of such spaces. I think N5 has that, but I'm not sure about the formula, how they accommodate startups. But this is lacking, of course.
Okay. Interesting. So, I mean, that's obviously something which has a lot of potential for sure, if anyone wanted to get into that. My next question is kind of, again, a bit more broad stroked in the sense that on the one hand, I think designers kind of make their unique identity in a sense through their kind of design stance. For example, some of your work is very evident. If you were to line it up with other objects, you can very quickly tell that, yes, that's a work done by Fadi. It's got its own unique design language and so on. So kind of pivoting back to what you said earlier about how you can kind of just take out preconceived notions, I'm curious to kind of hear from you, Do you think it's important for a designer to have a design language and carry that through their entire kind of career? Or do you think designers should be flexible and should maybe not have a very identifiable design language?
I believe like in the balance. I mean, it's very important to claim a certain style once it is really like mature enough.
Right.
It's not very advisable to stick to something that is not working yet just because like people think, okay, like now I have something. So there should be always room for adaptation.
Right.
But obviously, like when you're designing, you are kind of projecting how you think. You're projecting your character through form, and you can't project like multiple kind of personalities. It's like it's you. Like this is the manifestation of your way of thinking. So I don't think like if there's someone who has like no trace or like no kind of signature at all, it's confusing. And if somebody is also too rigid, it's also like not advisable because I have, yes, it's true. Like people recognize my furniture, but I adapt. Like I also want to react to things happening around. So the balance, basically, this is the answer.
Very interesting.
Finding the balance.
Very interesting. Again, as I said, we've been following your work. So I found the piece that you did at the expo for the pavilion really, really interesting. Obviously, there was a lot of context that went behind that piece, which is obviously understandable. But I kind of want to touch upon your inspirations because you seem to draw inspiration from many, many sources. So at the moment, what is on your mind and what is really driving your kind of design stance at the moment?
That's a difficult question. I don't know if I can answer it in general, right, because it has to do with the object that I'm designing. I'm always like, I don't think it's like is very specific to the time now, but it's still like kind of a continuation of the way I've been thinking before, which is I always thought that furniture design in general is stagnant, is too stagnant. And I'm always trying to find solutions or design solutions that where you are able to affect the piece after you buy it. You are able to interact with it, to upgrade it.
Right.
So I've always been trying to let furniture catch up with, let's say, the IT industry. Like with the computer, you can always add memory. You can add, more speed. In furniture, you're in a way stuck. So in some of my pieces, there's this ability. There's like a live piece. For example, Damascus Revisited collection. Like you can buy a fruit bowl, but in half an hour, you can dismantle it and build it again and make it a light. The same with the same pieces. The other collection, which is mainframe. I actually drove the name from the computer world because it's a collection where you buy a frame and then there are plugins that you keep, like you can choose your first set of plugins. But if you're bored from it, like you can buy other plugins, but also you can see what Fadi is, what did he come up with? Because I sometimes introduce new plugins that adapt, like maybe there are like now wireless charging station in it, and then you can upgrade.
Right.
So this is like something that is kind of driving my thinking, but not now. It's been like the past couple of years.
Right. That is very interesting about this kind of plug-in approach. I can't help but think about the very unfortunate modular building, which is recently being torn down, demolished. I mean, for me, it was an architectural icon, obviously.
Which one?
This is the one in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Which is so sad because maybe it was a bit too ahead of its time. And the concept obviously is very appealing to all architects, just like you described. And it seems that it should have worked, but for whatever reason it didn't. So I'm kind of thinking, do you think about the same sort of concepts across multiple fields as well? For example, do you think a mainframe concept could also work in interior design in terms of materiality? Could it work architecturally? Could it even work at a master plan level? Is that something that you think about, how these concepts can be spread across? Or
yeah, it can. I mean, obviously it can work on multiple scales, even urban level, but it makes it more challenging to apply. On furniture is more straightforward due to the scale.
Right.
But I always think that like I prefer to see buildings or interiors that are alive. in a way,
Interesting.
like you're able to affect them. It
Interesting.
happens sometimes where you like, there's a lot of interiors that you're able to open things and slide things, and your space becomes more interactive.
Right. Very interesting. I think you're one of the few designers that actually kind of thinks in such a broad spectrum, but yet very specific at times, which is very interesting. Off air, of course, just to kind of switch gears, we were talking about this kind of critical discord that we as designers should have in a healthy manner with the design environment around us. Rightly so, as there are very good buildings and we praise them, we can all admit that there are not so good buildings as well. And it's not so much of criticizing them, because it's more to learn from them and how we can improve and kind of elevate the design scene here. So I kind of want to hear from you, if you could kind of give us like a top 3 or a top 5 or something like that. What are the kind of common design missteps that you're seeing in the design scene here? What are people missing or not getting right?
Okay, but there differs when it comes to what discipline we're talking about. If we're talking about architecture,
Right.
I think there's in general a kind of learning that I see already. Like they are hiring, I don't like the word star architects, but the architects that are really contemporary.
Right.
Like in the beginning, like the Atkins of the world have shaped the way Dubai is and still is, because most of these buildings were built before that kind of, they opened their eyes to better kind of architectural firms. These kind of architectural firms that are very, very commercial, they didn't really care about the urban impact of any building. They just wanted to build it, cash their money, and
Right.
if the client is satisfied, fine. I also find but this is kind of being corrected. Another problem I've experienced in architecture is like communication, especially with the big developers. They kind of cut you from communicating with the decision maker. You find like there's so many layers of
Right.
second-hand communication.
Right.
Let's say you're working for Imar, and the final decision maker is Mr. Al-Abbar. But you don't hear like the brief from him. You hear it like second-hand from maybe third level.
Right.
And then there's a lot of
Like
things
Chinese whisper that
Yes,
happens. By the
yes.
time the information
Yes,
reaches
yes.
you.
Lots of things that are lost in translation, and then it didn't work because it's all about like answering the brief, and the brief is becomes vague, and
Right.
like there's a lot of missed opportunities in that.
Right.
Yeah, but on a small scale, like let's say design, furniture design, the mishaps are, I think there's no real curation.
How so?
For example, I've been participating in design days since 2013. And there is a reason I stopped participating, because I found that anybody can take a space and exhibit. So it becomes like kind of insulting to somebody who's really putting the effort to do something really innovative. And you find like you're surrounded by mediocre design.
Right.
So it kind of dilutes the impact of what you're presenting. And this is the problem, because if the standard is not that high, that means people are not challenged to create their best or to show us what they can do best. And yeah, this actually compromises the kind of design scene.
Right. So when you talk about curation, do you think that designers need to be involved in that, or does it need to be a third party entirely?
Yeah, third party, like whoever is organizing an exhibition.
Right.
There's a curator, and he's somebody who's like maybe a designer or not necessarily a designer, but it's their job to be very selective and kind of create, like they are the only ones who know like what is broadly what is being presented as an exhibition.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and this is why international, I think, galleries stopped participating as well.
Interesting.
Also, like from in parallel to that, which is in a way similar, design journalism here is like, there's no criticism. I would like to see an article that criticizes my work, because that will actually push me to do better. That will challenge me. I like, in a way, maybe, I don't know, unconsciously, maybe I become lazy in going the extra step, because it's like, in a way, nothing gets challenged. Yeah.
True. No, this is something, again, as we were talking about off air, this is something which all designers know and want to an extent, but it's just a gap that isn't being filled at the moment, which is which is quite unfortunate actually, because I think there's so much that we can learn from being positively critical, not to kind of just tear someone down just for the hell of it kind of thing. Yeah, which is very true. Again, because kind of shifting gears yet again, because our audience is a fairly young to mid-level audience. Obviously, they know of you, they know of your work, and so on. For the kind of young designer starting their career out, who probably wants to end up doing the work that you're currently doing, the types of scale and variety and so on, what kind of advice would you give them? Where should they start? What should they focus on or not focus on? How can they kind of develop their design sense in a way?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think there should be, in parallel to, like, design can never be dissociated from culture. So I advise them to kind of first, in parallel to being designers, they have to have a good knowledge of philosophy, politics, literature, because everything is related. Like to be able to answer, like through furniture, answer questions that is related to a way of living. Philosophical thought cannot be ignored. I also advise them to really, maybe sometimes I feel it's a little bit too late for me, but to really engage of the new technologies, because again, furniture is still behind, and integration or learning from new technologies is key in the future of furniture design. And on a practical sense, when it comes to design, my advice is to not to settle for any half-baked solutions. Although deriving from what we said before, mediocre can work, but not to settle for that, to really push their full potential. Otherwise, why bother?
Okay, well, there you go. For all the listeners, in a nutshell, don't settle. I think that's brilliant advice. So then kind of for the mid-level to senior designer now, who has probably heard you talk about how you've had time for research with a project like HIVE, about how you kind of get your information through your questionnaires and your interrogation with your clients and so on. I'm assuming that those designers, the kind of mid to senior, are now thinking, yeah, that sounds very good on paper and we would love to do that. But sometimes we just don't have the time, or, we don't have it's out of our scope and things like that. So maybe there isn't an answer for it. I'm not sure. But what would you kind of tell them to do? How can they also then elevate what they're doing?
I think my advice is that they, in a way, they have to squeeze the time. If the client doesn't give them that time, for their own sake, for the sake of the quality of the work that they have to produce at the end, they have to squeeze it in. Maybe it will be on the expense of their personal time.
Right.
But they have to squeeze it in. But in parallel, they have to also kind of be more adamant on it with the clients. They have to, sometimes I do have to educate the client. I have to kind of spoon feed to the client to say listen, we're doing this for the sake of the benefit of the project. This is how you would get your money worth.
Right.
We don't want to miss out the full potential of your project. And the only way that we can actually achieve it is by spending the time. Nothing can be kind of quickly solved, because you're going to live with that. Maybe we're going to add 2 weeks to a process, but your project is going to live for 20 years. What's 2 weeks in that time frame?
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. I think kind of going back to earlier what you said about how communication is very important. I think maybe that's also a skill which a lot of designers need to develop right from when they start out, just being able to communicate exactly something like that. I think that's very beneficial for a lot of them. Kind of as we wind down the episode, I'm kind of now looking to get your insights on what you see is going to happen. I know that obviously we've, been through a pandemic. Is it over? Is it not? We don't know, but it seems like we're on the other side of whatever it was. So I'm kind of curious to pick your mind and kind of get your insights on what do you see clients across multiple, typologies, be it restaurants, residential, so on and so forth. What are the clients of 2022/2023 looking for? What are their aspirations at this time?
Yeah, there's depends on the different types of clients. Because I have clients that are individuals doing their homes, and clients that are companies doing their, let's say, restaurants or office spaces. So it's different based on that category. For example, personal or individual clients doing their homes, they kind of learned that having a nicely designed house or practically designed house, they understood the importance of it. And this was actually most of my business during COVID time. Like we suddenly got a big flow of house kind of refurbishment.
Right.
Because people kind of spent more time in their house and they realized what is missing. They realized that they have to really like get it to that better level in terms of comfort, design, and practically also like a lot of people didn't have a place to work. They ended up working on the dining table. And I think this is something that these kind of clients learned. Right. And this is what we've been doing, and I think we will be doing. When the other category of clients, I think also because of the financial burdens that the pandemic brought, they became more kind of wiser in terms of spending.
Right.
So it's more about like, give us something that is very efficient, that is adaptive, that we can actually, maybe this is a meeting room, but also something else. And we got also like, between parentheses, we got a lot of, although there was like no work in terms of office design in the period, but we got a little small work in terms of, we don't need a meeting room anymore. Like we're happy with Zoom. Right. Let's change it into, I don't know, a small lounge or more desk space.
Right.
So these are the things, I think, the kind of trends, if we want to call them.
Very interesting. I never thought of that. But yeah, that's very true. I mean, the working at dining tables for sure, and pretty much everyone went through that. Yeah. So okay, that's kind of what they're looking for, which is interesting. Kind of as the final question of the episode. This is kind of open-ended. There's no right answer, so don't feel obligated to think of the right answer. We affectionately call it the utopian question. And this is basically the ideal client that comes to you and says, Fadi, I have this plot of land. It's 100,000 square feet. And here's my checkbook. It's a blank check. I'm giving you complete design control, freedom, write your own brief, build what you want to. The only criteria is that whatever you're going to build here, it needs to contribute back to the environment, be it philosophically to society, be it literally in terms of solar gain, whatever it is. But it's basically a blank canvas with a blank checkbook. That's the summary of it. So if you do get a client like that and says, this is in Dubai, mm-hmm. What would you want to design and build in this area?
Okay.
You can take your time and think about it. You don't have to answer immediately.
It's a nice problem. So basically, like, there's no program suggested by the client. Yeah. Yes. Like usually in my projects, the more constraints, the better for me. Like the kind of easier the solution, the less constraints, the more challenging it is to come up with the design solution. So yeah, it makes it more difficult. Even sometimes the constraint of the budget, I find it
as a good thing,
as a good challenge. Yeah, like when it's open budget, it puts a kind of extra strain on you because like your options open up, and then choosing becomes like more challenging. In terms of program, like I think in terms of scale, definitely I will keep it intimate in any case. But in terms of program, I don't know, it's interesting, but something social interaction kind of a space for once, like not non-profit related, like it's not designed to make profit. So this opens up like for creating solutions that kind of free themselves from that constraint. That don't have to be commercially driven or anything like that. Exactly. Yeah. Can create follies that don't necessarily have to have a function, but just this engaging people in experimenting and design. I don't know. I don't have to give it a name, right? It's like a place where social interaction happens, and especially in a country like Dubai, because I feel that people from different countries, what they do here, like they can kind of stay in their small pockets, which is their culture background. They don't really like merge or melt. So yeah, I mean, let's call it a melting pot.
I love it. That is a perfect description for what that project should be called, I'm sure. So yes, Fadi, thank you so much on behalf of us in the show. This was really, really insightful. And I'm sure we're going to have you on the show again. Definitely. For any of our listeners who want to find out more about you and your studio and your work and perhaps want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to find you or get in touch?
Thank you for having me. They can find me on Instagram. This is kind of my more up-to-date kind of communication. And there's always the website, which is fadisarieddine.com.
All right.
And there's an email on the website itself. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much again for your time. And for the rest of you, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormers, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being part of our journey, and thank you for the immense support we've been receiving for our episodes. It has and continues to be a very bumpy road, but we wouldn't want it any other way. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought you value, please share this episode with anyone who may benefit from it. But of course, if you loved the episode, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, send us a little DM, and we may just send you a secret link to a secret episode which we've been working on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. See you next time. Keep sketching.